The game is over, and now it's time to break down another showdown for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes.
Handoff and squirting through, out into the open field, cutting it back left. Antonio Martin, touchdown. Wow, what a run from the second stringer. 37 yards, and Kansas State is on the board first. 45 yards of penalties on this drive alone, and that's going to lead to a touchdown. Bird Ficklin over the right side, the true freshman quarterback with the first points of the game for the Utes.
He had a 70-plus yard touchdown run a week ago where he delivered a stiff arm. This kid's special.
There he goes again. Ficklin, end zone touchdown. Well, he's only played a handful of snaps in this first half. He's got both of the Utah touchdowns. That one from 6 yards out. They're going for it on fourth down in their own territory. Johnson, handoff, and they'll get the first down and more. Jackson, there he goes. Nobody's going to catch him. Joe Jackson, touchdown, Kansas State. 66 yards. Bird Ficklin is in the game, but he's out as a wide receiver on the left side. Dampier takes a snap, bounces it right, turns the corner. Dampier, pylon, touchdown, Utah. Averaging 15 yards a rush. They're getting more here. Jackson out into the open. What a cut. To midfield. Jackson to the 30, to the 20. Touchdown, Kansas State. 80 yards this time. It wasn't hurdles. It was like steeplechase. Parker for 12 now. In stride. Caught. Touchdown, Bentley. And the Utes come roaring out of the locker room to start the second half with a quick strike touchdown drive. That one from 38 yards out. 2nd and 6, and a keeper. That is Ficklin, and Bird Ficklin, touchdown. Just wouldn't be tackled. Low snap. Johnson throws wide open, touchdown. Well, they got there quickly. They got the play off. It almost got blown up because of the bad snap, but exactly what you said. The tight end was wide open. Oakley with the touchdown. 3rd and 7, Utah. Dampier, design run. Dampier straight ahead, takes a hit. The ball came out, and Kansas State falls on it. He had the first down, the huge hit, and the ball popped out, and the Wildcats come up with a turnover. They'll shift and hand it to Jackson straight ahead. There goes Jackson. Joe Jackson, an all-time night, into the end zone for another touchdown. 24 more yards. 47-35. Kansas State going for 2. Johnson is going to throw, and it's knocked away, deflected, and actually intercepted. There is a penalty flag. Returnable, and here goes Utah. Taylor Johnson. Avery Johnson trying to catch him. Taylor Johnson angling, and he's going to go all the way. Dampier toward the corner of the end zone, and caught! Touchdown, Larry Simmons. What a throw and catch. This game's not over from 20 yards out. Out of the 2-minute timeout. Utah's season on the line. They need a yard. Dampier with Parker is going to fake it. Dampier straight ahead. There he goes! Dampier! Inside the 30! To the sideline! Inside the 5! Inside the 1 for Utah. Parker and Dampier. Parker in motion. Dampier keeps it. Dampier, touchdown, Utah! And scrambling, throws across his body, and it's intercepted! The senior, Lander Barton. And that's going to do it.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, what a game. It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles, joining me to break down One of the craziest, wildest, most random games I think we will ever see, Alex. Utah gets the win 51-47. Technically, their college football playoff hopes are still alive. It was an ugly game. It was a brutal game. It's going to be remembered for all the wrong reasons. But at the end of the day, my friend Alex Napoles, the Utes get the win.
We've said it before, man. What matters, I think, most is the win. But there is a lot to break down with this game because I think Kansas State came in and surprised a lot of people. Certainly surprised us. Who, we were talking this morning, College Football Saturday, didn't necessarily give Kansas State too much of a shot at potentially taking this one. Thought Utah was going to run away with it like they've done the last couple of games, but the reality was they had their backs against the wall. And some way, somehow, the Utes were able to pull it out, man.
I would have told you that you are crazy if you said at any point this season, this Utah team would allow the most rushing yards out of any Utah team ever.
Yeah.
Let alone in the week 13 game against Kansas State. Huge red flag there. Obviously the story of the night. So many long touchdown runs for the Wildcats and just uncharacteristic because that is not what Utah does. And shout out to Joe Jackson for breaking the Kansas State single game rushing record that was held by Darren Sproles, like one of the greats in the NFL. That's a huge name. And this sophomore comes in and breaks the single game rushing record against a Utah team that was one of the best rushing defenses in the conference. Super uncharacteristic for the Utes tonight on senior night. A lot of issues all over that defense, and that's what allowed Kansas State to make this thing a game. But ultimately, Utah does respond and get the win. But Alex, what are your thoughts on that leaky run defense?
Not great. And, I didn't think that. I thought if Kansas State was going to have a chance in this game, I thought it was going to come through the air. Avery Johnson has been, the worst at passing the ball, but Kansas State have really struggled to run the ball. Whereas Utah's defense was besides Texas Tech, was one of the best in the Big 12 at stopping the run. Mm-hmm. And so for Utah to go out and allow, what was the final tally on the rushing yards, Christian?
472, counting the sacks.
472 rushing yards in a game. Never would have believed it, man.
No. Who? We've got some comments chiming in. Shout out to Todd Apple by 7692. Never doubted, he says.
Never doubted.
Never doubted. I love the mentality, Todd. I love it. There were at times when I definitely was doubting this game, basically for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah.
But, man, this Utah team can put up a lot of points. And they have scored 40 points in all of their conference wins.
Quite the contrast from where they were last season. Quite a major difference from where they were last year. That's again credit to that offensive line, credit to Jason Beck, credit to this new Utah offense and guys like Devin Dampier, guys like Wayshawn Parker for being able to keep up with Kansas State in a shootout. Last year I don't think there was any hope that Utah would ever be able to keep up in a shootout, but this season, right, because of the offensive performances that you've seen coming into this game, I think even in a situation where Kansas State again showed up, they came out swinging, they came out punching, and they gave Utah their best shot. Utah was able to respond just about every single time in those situations, and again, that's huge, man. That's huge because last year that offense wasn't able to have any type of semblance of what we saw tonight.
How about this one, actually? So I said Utah has scored over 40 points in all their conference wins, which is true.
Yeah.
In 3 of those conference wins, they have broke the 50-point mark. And that's 3 of their last 4 games against Colorado, Baylor, and then tonight against Kansas State. So this is a Utah offense that is rolling. And it doesn't matter who's at quarterback, whether it's Dampier or Ficklin. I thought both guys were really good tonight. It was one of Dampier's best nights on the ground. He finished with 14 carries, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including that huge 59-yard run that set up the go-ahead touchdown late at the end of the game. And then, of course, Bird Ficklin gets the 3 touchdowns on the ground. He finished with 54 total yards on the night. Dampier started off really shaky, throwing the ball really bad.
Yeah.
But he ended 18 of 33 for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a really pretty pass there at the end of the game to help them claw back in. So a lot of positives, a lot of negatives in this one. Ultimately, though, like I said, it's great to have this game go down as a win because Ute fans are going to remember that Kansas State game that we won? But dude, one of the worst defensive performances we've ever seen from a Kyle Whittingham coach team.
Yeah.
That is what worries me, on week 13 of the season.
346 at the halftime break rushing yards. That's insane. I've never, I've followed Utah football for a while, and I've watched a lot of Utah football games and a lot of BYU games, and I don't think I've ever seen Utah's defense give up the run as poorly as they did today.
Statistically, no.
Credit to Joe Jackson.
They've never had a night this bad.
Right. But again, missing tackles, man. It's been the story of the season all season long. We talk about missing tackles just about every single week, and there was quite a lot of missed tackles today that allowed some big runs from Kansas State. And I thought even with bending not breaking, right, Utah's been able to keep and hold offenses for the most part, right, throughout a large majority of the season. But tonight they broke a lot, and Joe Jackson has a career night, breaks the rushing record for Kansas State. And there's concerns now on the defensive side because last week, right, you give up 430 through the air to Sawyer Robertson, and now this week in the rushing attack, you show some weaknesses.
Yeah, as you pointed out, a lot of missed tackles. Jonathan Hall had a couple missed tackles. The safeties had a couple as well that frankly just broken out of. Another big issue was just not filling their lanes. I mean, there were guys, over pursuit was an issue all night. Yeah. They overflow to the side where they think the ball is going, and then the running back just cuts back and there's no help on the backside, and it's literally wide open. And how many times did we see that tonight, Alex? It was several, right? And
yeah,
so it's just uncharacteristic for that to happen this late in the season, especially. It would make sense if this was a young team with a new defensive coordinator and they're still learning the scheme and it's early on in the year and they don't really know what they're doing yet. But Alex, they've played, 11 games now. This was their 11th game of the season on a team that has a lot of seniors that have been playing for Morgan Scalley for a really long time. So what that tells me, it seems like they could, I don't want to speak for the team. I feel like they just came in overconfident with this one, looking at what Kansas State had done this season and what Utah had done the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a simple case of, they severely underestimated the Wildcats tonight, and that really hurt them.
You know what? And that possibly could be it, because I think a lot of people, maybe, we talked about this morning, man, the line that for this game was 16.5 points for Utah. I think everybody anticipated Utah to just absolutely wipe the floor with Kansas State, who last week really struggled to even move the ball against a struggling Oklahoma State defense. And then they come in and they put this performance up, man. I think it took a lot of people by surprise, and I think you do possibly have a semblance of a little bit of overconfidence in play here, because Utah's defense, I think, again, just looked weak. They didn't look like anything like the defense we've seen throughout the course of the season.
Scott Christensen in the comments on YouTube, shout out to him. He's got a Wildcat profile picture. He says, hats off to the Utes. I didn't bet a side. I thought KSU would have gotten blown out, so I took the over instead. Smart strategy, my man. I hope you made a lot of money. No, I appreciate you tuning in. I was really impressed by Kansas State tonight. Obviously, it sucks that they have this type of performance and they still end up losing, especially with only 5 wins on the year, and they're hoping to get bowl eligible. It's been a roller coaster of a season for Kansas State. But I'll tell you what, man, I really do like Avery Johnson. And I feel like his career at Kansas State is always going to go down as a what if. It seems like things have never really broke his way. Season-ending injuries to some of their top wide receivers, right? So just a lot of bad luck for Avery Johnson at Kansas State. And then you had Matt Wells tonight, really in his bag. He loves to give the Utes fits. He's done that several times throughout his football life, right? So yeah, it's definitely the Matt Wells revenge game. But all in all, I think you got to tip your hat to Kansas State for really, really giving the Utes a game and making them earn this win, because that was just one of the dominant performances that you'll remember as a football fan.
And one of the most dominant performances that I can ever think of somebody coming into Rice Eccles Stadium and having in recent memory, right? Even last season, right, when Utah wasn't winning games at home, they still had the defense to match to match teams and match their opposition. But tonight, again, Kansas State came in. Shout out to former Utah Aggies head coach Matt Wells, and he came in with a plan, man, and they executed really well. And then plus, when you have, what was it, 7+ rushes for 30+ yards, like that's insane. I just never thought that we would ever see that from a Utah defense, who again was only allowing about near 130 yards per game coming into this one, the second best rushing defense in the Big 12, and yet you allow a team who really struggled rushing the ball all season long come in and have this type of performance, man. It's stunning.
I'm grinning because they literally gave up 3 times their per game average tonight.
Yeah.
It was a crazy performance. But you know what? I do want to highlight a couple of defenders that really sealed this game tonight. I want to give a big shout out to Smith Snowden. I think he played his best game of the season. Maybe not play to play, but you know what? He had several impact plays tonight. One of them, he had a huge tackle on the 1 yard line that stopped Kansas State. Utah ultimately did end up giving a touchdown on that drive, but I thought that was a tremendous play by Smith Snowden to come in and stop the tackle there. Then he had the big pass breakup on the pick 2 that Teo Johnson returned for the 2 points that allowed Utah to, come back and win it. Phenomenal play. And then he had a big tackle there on Kansas State's drive too to help force a punt and give Utah the ball back. So 3 big plays for Smith Snowden, and then Lander Barton, game-sealing interception. All in all, I haven't been super impressed with Lander Barton this season, especially as a senior. I had really high hopes for him. But in what was probably his last play as a Utah Ute, he seals the game with an interception. And I think that is very, very special for him.
Absolutely. You talk about the pick 2, and that's obviously a huge momentum shift a little bit, right? Even though there was the flag, and I think a lot of Kansas State players and maybe even some Utah guys didn't know if it was actually going to stand. It still changes momentum because you steal 2 points away, right? You keep 2 points off the board on your end, then you go and you steal 2 on the other end. With the pick 2, you get a little bit of that momentum, a little bit of that confidence. You keep it within 10, and from there, right, it's a different conversation. Instead of going and needing 2 touchdowns, you just need a touchdown and a field goal. And I think that also that takes a little bit of the pressure off the offense a little bit, because I mean, you get the big run from Devin Dampier too, and you're already in field goal range. But I mean, when you're that close, you got to punch it in, and you got to be able to take the touchdown, which they do ultimately. But that pick 2, man, I think changes a lot of the narrative of this of what was that fourth quarter.
Yeah. Again, a huge play by a big time player, and then not just Smith Snowden, but Teo Johnson as well, another guy who's been a part of this program for a long time and made some plays for the Utes. And again, another player who's had a lot of ups and downs this season, and thinking of how this might be his last game as a Ute, like to have that play to go out on. It's awesome for him.
I think obviously there's a lot of things you need to clean up on the defensive side of the ball. I think there's a lot of things you need to figure out on the defensive side of the ball before you head into that final game at Kansas. But I think a big positive that you can take away from this is that in the moments when you needed them most, your veterans, your leaders, your Smith Snowdens, your Teo Johnsons, your Lander Bartons, your defense came up with the big plays to put this game away. And to give you that opportunity to get back into the game.
And you'd like the game to not have to come down to that,
right?
Which really it hasn't all season. I mean, Utah has not played in very many close games this year.
This was the first game, Christian, where Utah was down and they're able to get a win. When their opposition scored first, Texas Tech, BYU, 0-2.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by that, honestly. That is a nice little stat. And you know what? Again, that kind of points to this was one of the better games we've seen from Dampier as a passer.
Yes.
Obviously still mistakes, especially early on in the game, but he definitely did seem to settle in and really make some big time throws. And that's something that a lot of people were questioning. If Utah were to go down, could Devin Dampier throw them back into the game? And you know what? Tonight, I would say he did.
He absolutely did. Obviously he goes as a big run, but I think ultimately too, you have to consider the 2 passes to Larry Simmons, man. First, the third and long, right, to get you within a chance to convert on 4th and 1, which they do, and then obviously a couple plays later, that throw to the corner of the end zone. We've seen it before, right? We've seen him make that throw to Larry Simmons before. They come up huge again, Dampier and Simmons. Simmons gets the touchdown, and then all of a sudden, right, the even more momentum shifts into Utah's favor.
Yeah. Also, questionable officiating. Just want to point that out. I think that's going to be a controversial topic, really, for both sides. I thought there were some pretty bad calls that went both ways for this one. Honestly, I don't know if I would say that it really changed the outcome of the game. I don't know if it was that bad, but there were a few calls that were made and kind of had me like really questioning what was going on.
Some head
what they were seeing out there.
You know what though, as far as like the flags go and as far as the penalties go, what a messy first drive from Kansas State, man. On the defensive side of the ball.
Defensive
side of the ball. First of all, 52, Ryan Davis, no, not wide receiver Ryan Davis, but the other Ryan Davis that's on Kansas State, comes in, gets ejected for that hit on Devin Dampier. You have the face mask too that happened in that, right? Rips off Bird's helmet. Just some weird over aggressive plays. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was a messy start from Kansas State, man.
Yeah, and that really allowed Utah to get their momentum, right? The mistakes on the Kansas City side of the ball, those 2 penalties that were pretty egregious. I think those ones were not controversial. Obviously, no. The targeting one was clear as day. I mean, that was textbook targeting. And Utah doesn't score on that first drive without those penalties because they really could not move the ball. And it was the penalties that allowed them to stay in that one. So just a really sloppy, fun, classic college football game tonight from these 2 teams. And honestly, nobody would have thought that coming in. But Utah is obviously glad they got the win, especially with the college football playoff hopes still alive, still on the line. I honestly don't know if this is the type of ugly win that might drop them in the rankings. I don't know what goes through the mind of the voters for the college football playoff committee. We'll have to wait till Tuesday to see what they think of this, but I'm sure that's going to be a big topic over the next 2 or 3 days.
Absolutely. And real quick, just to make a case for that and to make a case for Utah, last week, Texas A&M down 30-3 at the halftime break against South Carolina. They end up coming back and then get a 1-point win at home against a struggling South Carolina team, and they didn't drop. So I'm hoping, and we'll see, right? I'm hoping Utah gets some sort of benefit of the doubt, and they don't get penalized for this 3-point win.
Yeah, we'll have to see, and obviously it kind of depends on what else happens around them as well. And we'll get into that later. We'll go through some of the scores from the day and kind of what that's going to mean for Utah coming out of this. Because, at the end of today, Utah's still only going to have 2 losses, and things are set up really well. They need help. Everybody knows that. But they are doing what they need to do on their side. They're taking care of business. Real quick, before we go to break, Alex, do you think this was Kyle Whittingham's last home game at Rice-Eccles Stadium?
We'll see, man. We'll see. I don't know if I think there's a possibility that it was, but nothing about his demeanor or anything would suggest that it wasn't, right? It wasn't his last game. So we'll see what happens. But I think there's a big contingency of Utah fans that feel like this was the last dance for Kyle Whittingham.
I think if they lost, he would have came back for sure.
Just off of the one loss?
Yeah. I can't go out like that. No, we'll see. We will see. And he has said before that he's not going to give any hints. One day he will be here and the next day he won't. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Regardless, though, again, another memorable win for the Utes. What a crazy, crazy game.
What a comeback, man.
What a comeback and phenomenal finish. We got to take a break real quick, and then coming back on the other side, we will continue to break down this win for Utah, 51-47 over Kansas State. I want to thank everybody in the comments so far, getting a ton of reaction in this one. It's a lot of fun to go through some of these comments. So if you have thoughts that you want to leave on this game for the Utes or the Wildcats, drop a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and we will get to those. We will get to some reaction. Quick break, 3 minutes. We will be right back on the other side. Stick with us. It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles, breaking down this 51-47 Utah win over Kansas State. Alex, for as memorable of a game this is going to be for Utah that they got the win, it was so close to being an absolute disaster, a game in which it seemed like Utah was trying to lose at one point. I do want to point to one sequence in particular. The end of the first half was so terribly organized for the Utes. Awful clock management. They have a 9-play drive that stalls out because of a penalty. They're forced to punt. Kansas State gets the ball back, and what do? They rip off an 80-yard touchdown, and then you go to halftime there essentially after another couple of punts. Thankfully, though, I don't know what was said at halftime, but Kyle Whittingham really tore into the team, I'm assuming, because they did come out of halftime and into the third quarter really firing. They obviously started with a touchdown, then they forced Kansas State to punt, and then they scored another touchdown. So 14-point swing coming out of the half. But man, that end of the first half really felt like Sorry, there's a loud truck going by. End of the first half really felt like that could have been the nail in the coffin for the Utes. But as we mentioned, like Dampier was able to throw them. I don't know. I don't even know if I would say throw them back into this one, but throw well enough to get them back into this one. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that's the word that you use there. I think is the key, and it's the well enough. Because right, the first half, even when they were down and when they were trying to move the ball down the field, there was struggles. There was some poorly thrown balls by Devin Dampier. There was some didn't hit his target. There was a couple of throws I can think of off the top of my head to Dallin Bentley that he tried to connect with and couldn't get it to go. But he again, we talked about it a little bit in the last segment. He came up in the moments where he was needed the most, right, and where those throws were needed the most. And so I think well enough is the key there for Utah and Devin Dampier. 259 is the total number. Does have 2 touchdowns through the air. Well enough, I think, is a great way to put it, Christian.
And I think that's what you're expecting from Devin Dampier at his best, right? I don't think you're ever going to get a guy who's going to win a game with his arm, but on nights like this, when he's throwing well enough, I mean, they did not. If they would have lost this game, it would not have been because of Devin Dampier's inability to throw the ball. Where at other times this season, we have seen them lose. I mean, they probably would have beat BYU and had a lot of a much closer game against Texas Tech had Devin Dampier been able to throw the ball better in those games. But today was not a close one because Devin Dampier couldn't throw the ball. It was the defense that was an issue. I liked what I saw from the throw game. Again, it took maybe a quarter and a half, maybe 2 quarters to get going. But at the end of the day, I mean, Buchanan finishes with 74 yards on 2 big catches. Larry Simmons, of course, with the 2 huge catches on the final drive, including the touchdown. Excuse me, not the final drive, but the second to last drive, including the touchdown there. And then Dallin Bentley continues to show up big as well. He had 54 yards on the night. So not a lot of guys getting involved in this, but it's the same 3 or 4 guys that are continuously making plays. And it seems like those are the more reliable ones. And everybody else outside of them, they're not showing up on the box scores because they're just simply not able to play. And I don't know if they are not trusted by the coaching staff or Dampier or both, but you've got the solid group of guys. And outside of that, nothing.
I'll have to go back and maybe rewatch this a little bit, but I'm curious as far as the drop off we've seen from Ryan Davis, right? Our defense is just honing in on him more and covering him up more, knowing that was Mr. Reliable and the consistent target for Utah. Because remember, last week he only finished with 1 catch for 9 yards in that Baylor game, and tonight Ryan Davis ultimately has no catches for Utah in this one. So I'm curious. I'd have to go back and maybe keen a little bit more on number 9 on the field. But it seems like defenses are aware now of what Ryan Davis is and who Ryan Davis is, and so you have to rely on guys like Creed Whittemore, number 80, who came in and got 51 yards in this one.
And remember, at one point, Davis, he led the Big 12 in catches, or was second, I think, at one point. So yeah, they clearly had that connection. But you're right, Alex. Over the past couple of weeks, it's kind of gone away, but. Coincidentally, maybe, I don't know, Whittemore has really stepped up. 6 catches, he led the team tonight, and I think he's a good player. I don't know. This throw game has been really perplexing all season, and it seems like it has never really been able to get consistent play from anybody. And like when the receivers get separation, Dampier misses the throws, and Dampier will make a really, really nice throw, and then it's dropped. There are a couple drops tonight.
I will say
one over the middle, but that was huge.
Yeah, I will say it felt like that long one to JJ Buchanan in the first half gave the passing game a little bit more confidence, which I think was vital heading down the stretch in the first half, and then of course in the second half getting some semblance of a passing game going. And I think it started with that big pass down the field to JJ Buchanan.
Utah continues to move it well on the ground. Obviously, one of the best rushing teams in the entire country coming into this one. They finished with 50 carries for 292 yards, 5 total touchdowns on the ground. How about this? All 5 of those came from 2 different quarterbacks. Devin Dampier with 2, Bird Ficklin with 3. But Wayshawn Parker gets another 100-yard performance added to his belt. Now he's stacking, I believe that's 3 in a row for him. Really, really good past couple of weeks for Parker?
For Wayshawn Parker, great to see him break 100 again. You'll see him have the pink cleats again. Disappointed he didn't get a touchdown. I thought if somebody deserved a touchdown at some point tonight, it would have been Wayshawn Parker, but doesn't get a touchdown. But that's okay because Bert Ficklin comes off the bench in those quarterback sets and has 3 touchdowns. The first 2 of the game to Bert Ficklin. And again, the true freshman just comes in, continues to not back out of any moment, to show well anytime he's on the field. I think even the broadcast team mentioned it. Good things happen when Bert Ficklin touches the ball, and you saw that. You saw that in the early goings of this one. Interesting too to see that late in the game, it was all Devin. It was mostly all Devin, and again, I think that goes back to what we've talked about with this quarterback situation. Is that in those? It seems like Devin Dampier is your QB1, and he's going to be your QB1 because he has that leadership, he has that experience down the stretch. Right, Utah needs scores; they need to move the ball down the field. They stick with Devin Dampier. You didn't see Bert Ficklin too much down the stretch. And so that's, again, just an indication of how much they trust Devin Dampier as that QB1.
Correction, that's 4 100-yard games in a row for Wayshawn Parker. But I honestly thought, I'm not going to lie to you, Alex, at one point, I was wondering if they were going to make the switch to Bird because he had played that good in this game. And like I said, like Dampier really struggled early on in this one. And they're still not really letting Bird throw the ball. Which is funny because he was 9 of 9 on the year, and then he made the start against Colorado and really wasn't great through the air. And since then, I don't think he's completed or he's attempted a pass. He's just running his special packages on the ground. But again, like Devin Dampier was just ineffective early on in this one, and Bird had, I think, 2 or maybe even 3 touchdowns at the point when I started to think like, man, they might just make the switch now because they have a decision to make, and it has to be made soon. And we mentioned this morning, because of the transfer portal getting moved to basically early mid-January, that's not a decision that you can wait on. You need to make up your minds now. You basically have this game and then the bowl game / playoff, whatever. And then that's it.
Yeah. Yes. And I think there for a moment too, when Devin Dampier went to the tent for a little bit, right, there was the timeout for where Devin Dampier had to go to get checked, make sure he was good to go. Bert Ficklin steps in. I thought maybe in that moment too, if Devin wasn't able to return, I did, watching what Bert Ficklin was able to do prior to that moment, I did have confidence that Bert Ficklin was going to be able to come in and continue to move the offense down the field the way that he was.
And this game did not come without some I guess injuries, right? Big one, obviously, first off, earlier in the game, John Henry Daly, who was having a monster first quarter, by the way, he left early on. I want to try and find, he had the first quarter alone, he had 4 tackles, 3 solo, 2 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And then he leaves because I don't know, I don't want to speculate on when the injury was. It was lower body, obviously. Outside of that, you don't really know much except he didn't return.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that impacts to what the defense was doing, because we know John Henry Daly, it's his breakout season. We know how disruptive he is in the passing game, right? Gets to the quarterback quick, forces quarterback to make quick decisions, was doing phenomenal on the sacks, although the sack numbers have kind of slowed down prior to this game. And then, of course, he does a good job of taking the runner down behind the line of scrimmage and getting in there for tackles for losses. And so I wonder how much losing John Henry Daly changes a little bit of what we saw Utah do normally defensively, and how much that impacts the numbers that Kansas State was able to put up in this one.
We'll see. I mean, maybe Kyle Whittingham will address it, but like losing your defensive end shouldn't mean giving up 470 rushing yards. The defensive ends typically aren't stopping the run game. That's your D tackles and the linebackers and the safeties, worst case scenario. So we'll see what he has to say there. But Utah also loses Spencer Fano, which was kind of a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a heartbreaker to lose Henry Daly, don't get me wrong. But it's senior night. Spencer Fano leaves. I mean, even the broadcast was talking about he's probably going to be the first offensive lineman taken in April's draft. And you just hope that this isn't a serious enough injury to impact that. because that
absolutely
would be so special and so important to him. So hoping that he's okay as well.
Absolutely. We talked about it this morning, man. The offensive line is a massive reason as to why Utah's having the success that they're having on offense.
Yeah.
You're not able to run the ball the way that you do without the experience and without the talent that you have on that offensive line. And so when a guy like Spencer Fano goes down, I think everybody holds their breath. Everybody in the stadium holds their breath. Every Utah fan holds their breath. And of course, we hope both John Henry Daly and Spencer Fano are going to be good.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And again, it's a Utah defense specifically that has really battled injuries all season long. I mean, first it was the defensive back group that was pretty banged up. And then now you're seeing, again, those two guys leaving with injury. So that really sucks. And again, hoping the best for those guys, especially, I mean, Fano would be cool to see him return, but like it was a senior night. They get the win. If he doesn't need to return, rest up, big fella, and go kill him in the NFL. You know, Henry Daly, it's like you have next season, and not banking on him needing to come back anytime soon. So we'll see, but sucks, man. Those injuries sucks, especially when it's to the star players,
especially when the key guys, man. Especially to two guys who've been having the seasons that both of those guys have been having. You want those, you want your stars, you want your best players out on the field at all times possible. You want everybody to be as healthy as possible, and so. Again, we just hope the best for those two guys.
All right, let's take a break real quick. Kyle Whittingham has wrapped his post-game presser. We are working on getting the audio cleaned up and ready to play. Sean doing a great job back at the studio. So on the other side of this break, we will get to the post-game comments from Kyle Whittingham and then wrap up our thoughts on this crazy, crazy game. Stick with us. It's the Ute Post-Game Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me as we continue to break down this 51-47 Utah win over Kansas State. In case you missed it, which I would be shocked if you missed it, Utah gives up the most rushing yards they ever have in the history of the program. Kansas State rushes for almost 500 yards. It is a crazy game. These teams trading blows right up until the very end, and ultimately it's Utah that comes out with the win. Want to talk about the college football playoff scenarios, Alex, because frankly, for the Utes, outside of getting the win, everything else tonight kind of broke really poorly for Utah as far as what they needed. You had number 7 Oregon losing to USC. You had Oklahoma beating Missouri. You were hoping Oklahoma would pick up their third loss. You had Alabama obviously beating Eastern Illinois. Then you had number 13 Miami getting the win over Virginia Tech, and you had number 14 Vanderbilt getting the win over Kentucky. So not only do the teams in front of you win, the teams nipping at your heels right behind you also win, leaving you without any breathing room. So I'm anxious to see what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of this Utah win over Kansas State, what they think of this ugly win, and if at all they're going to get docked, I guess, for a quote-unquote ugly win, or if a win's a win and they're going to stay where they're at.
Right. And I think that's probably going to be the thing you're looking at the most on Tuesday when those rankings come out. It is the fact that Utah was snuck away with this win at home, right? They had to come back. They were down 47-35 with 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. They had to mount the comeback effort. They did come back. They hold on. They get the win. But we'll see where the committee values this win for Utah. Again, I hold the statement that I said earlier, where Texas A&M snuck by a South Carolina team. I think they got the benefit of the doubt for the SEC and not falling and not being penalized for a close win, for that 1-point win. So we'll see where what the committee thinks about a similar situation here in the Big 12.
All right, Alex, we got to get to this post-game sound. Searching through social media, saw some tweets from those live in the press room. Sounded like Whit might have got a little emotional talking about this win. Obviously, again, it's a win that everybody watching or involved in is going to remember for a very, very long time. But then there is the reality that this may or may not be Kyle Whittingham's last home game ever at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That is TBD, but I think it's a big deal because obviously this is a guy that's been at the program for 20-something years, right? And he has been Utah football, and he has done so many great things for this program. And to potentially go out with a crazy win like this would be pretty special. But I don't know. I haven't heard the post-game audio, so let's get to that and hear what he has to say, and then you can make your assumptions for yourself.
Hope you enjoyed that one. That was one for the ages. I guess games like that come along every once in a great while, but so proud of our guys hanging in there. Got battered in the run game. If you'd have said we're going to give up nearly 500 yards rushing and win the game, I'd say you're crazy. I mean, that doesn't happen. And so just a great illustration of what determination and guts and never say die attitude can get you. And that just so happy for our seniors to be able to go out with a win, their last opportunity in Rice-Eccles. Excuse me, when I think about our seniors, I get emotional, so I apologize. But it's just so awesome for them to be able to have that experience. Offense, great job. Continuing, first of all, we got down coming out of halftime. We're down 10. We scored two touchdowns right out of the gate, which put us in the lead for just a short period of time. Then of course we got behind again. One of the pivotal plays of the game, the 2-point conversion, where instead of them getting the 2 points, we intercept it and get the. So it's a 4-point reversal, which really made a difference there at the end, obviously, in the strategy. I thought Devin played a very good game. He had well over 300 yards of total. A lot of great individual efforts on offense. The offensive line played well again. We had 259 rushing, so that was a big deal. 292 rushing, 259 throwing. So a lot of good things. Wayshawn Parker goes to 100 yards again for the night. Creed Whitmore stepped in for RD. Ryan Davis went down, and Creed stepped in and did a nice job, caught 6 balls. So just so many things that are positive, but not a lot of positives on defense. We understand that, but we got the interception there at the end to seal it. So that was our lone takeaway of the evening. But just one of those games where stuff happens and it's you can't script it. You couldn't make that up. And so just proud of our guys, and again, particularly grateful that our seniors could have the opportunity to win their last game here at Rice Eccles. Questions?
Kyle, can you identify what went wrong with the rushing defense to give up that? You've never given up that.
It was a power run game, just a basic power play, and it was an A-gap power play where we'll start strong side and cut it back, and we continually didn't defend it the right way. We were out of square, we were losing gaps, and so obviously we didn't do a good enough job as coaches to getting them ready to play, especially that particular play. But it was that one play did the majority of the damage. They just ran it over and over, and we just didn't do a good enough job as coaches. So that's on me.
Kyle, what does Rice Eccles Stadium and this environment mean to you personally?
Oh, it's incredible, and I did see a few fans leaving when I think we got down by 10 with not much time to go, and didn't like to see that, but I guess you can't blame them. But those fans that hung around, that was a special treat for them, and those fans that did hang around were as loud as a packed stadium at the end. That was deafening in there, and the Muss. Awesome, one of the best student sections in the country. Our band, just so many positives in Rice Eccles and the environment there, and we're fortunate to be able to have that kind of home field advantage.
Kyle, you've talked a lot about just what Devin Dampier has meant to this team in terms of leadership. I think that was on display tonight. Just walk me through, from the sideline, just what was your emotions, what was running through your head when you saw him finally cross across the goal line for the eventually game-winning touchdown? Just
that last score, it was surreal. I mean, first of all, when he popped that fourth and one, that was about a 60-yard run, 50, 60-yard run, and I thought he had scored on that. But, it was just a moment that, like I said, you can't even dream it up. I mean, it just happens, and just have to enjoy it. I mean, because you find yourself on the other end of those type of games, too, at times. And so just enjoy the good ones.
Bird Vicklin had 3 touchdowns. What was his role coming into the game, and how well did he execute that?
He had the same role that he's had the last couple games, last 3 games, where he supplements a little bit. Devin's still not 100%, and so we supplement a certain percentage of the plays with Bird. And you saw what a terrific runner he is. Again, tonight he put that on display. Didn't have much of an opportunity to throw the ball. I think he only had a couple throws. But I maintain that he is a big-time player with a huge upside and a high ceiling, and he's really helped us win games this year.
I know your job is to win the games. There's a committee that's got to decide who the best teams in the country are, and we've got to figure out where you guys stand in the country. Mm-hmm. Winning games ugly, like this one was, what does that say about a team?
I don't think it's an ugly win. I mean, it was a close win, but it was an exciting game, and to me, there's a win's a win. I'm never one that's going to sit here and lobby for whether we should be in or not. I don't believe in that. The play on the field speaks for itself. We're 9-2. Got a chance to get to 10 if we take care of business next week, and we'll see if that's good enough. That's pretty much all I can say about that.
Coach, you did get a little emotional thinking of your senior class.
Yes.
If there's a moment from this game tonight that kind of sums up what this senior class is all about, or that you'll remember about this class, is there one?
Wow, so many. There's too many. I don't think there's any one in particular. just the guts and the intestinal fortitude that they showed, and never say die attitude. I mean, they were the whole time on the sidelines. No one was pointing fingers. No one was getting down on anybody. It was just very positive and very upbeat, and that's who we are. I mean, that's our culture.
Coach, do your best job at walking and the fans through and painting a picture for the moment, from the moment Kansas State went up by 12 to Teo taking that 2-point conversion back. Just do your best job of painting a picture for the fans, helping put them on the sidelines. What was the message? What was being talked about from players to coaches?
Well, we knew there was enough time to still win. I mean, it was not a done deal. I guess ESPN had us at 97% chance of losing at that point on the meter. My daughters look at that the whole game, and that's how they decide if they're happy or not. But it was down to 97%. But there's 3% there for us, I guess. So we felt that if we could get the ball in the end zone again, then manage the clock, and we had all 3 timeouts. Fortunately, we didn't squander any of the timeouts because that was huge down the stretch there to have all 3 of those in your pocket. But everyone on the sideline never stopped believing. Nobody threw in the towel. They had that belief, that unwavering belief that you need to have there, and they continue to persevere. So that's as good a picture as I can paint.
Kyle, it's become pretty clear how much Devin and Lander mean to this team emotionally. Yeah. What did it mean to you to see them make the plays that they did late in the game, the 59-yard run, the interception for Lander?
Yeah, it was great. And what a fitting way for Lander Barton to finish his career here at Rice Eccles. I guess maybe there may be one more, I don't know. But for him to seal the victory with that pick, he's done so much for this program through the years. Just a tremendous competitor. His whole family, that starts with his parents played here, and his mom was an all-WAC performer in 2 sports, and of course Jackson came here, then Cody, and then Lander, and his sister, Danny is tremendous, and so the whole family has just been so integral to Utah athletics for so many years. It was good to see him be the guy to seal it.
Take 2 more. Kyle, at halftime, there's a lot of different ways to play it. You encourage them, be angry, and fire them up. What did you say, and how did you say it?
I lit into the defense pretty good. I said, that's not who we are. I mean, there's times to coddle, and there's times to get after them, and I felt that was the time to do that, and that was my message, and they responded. They didn't flinch. They didn't hang their head. They got the message loud and clear, and not that we are as good as we needed to be in the second half either. I mean, we were at the end there, but we still were not who we usually are. But offense had been productive, and just telling them, hey, your job is to go out and score this first drive and cut the deficit to 3, and they did. In successive drives they scored, but the defense, they knew, they're smart kids, they understand, and got after the coaches too, because we weren't doing our best job coaching.
Kyle, Teo has had an up and down season, but he had that 2-point conversion that was turned into an interception. Can you just speak about how important that play in particular was for this game, and also how important it was for Teo, who has had such an up and down year?
Yeah, and I would say when you say up and down, I think it was down the first half, and it's been way up the second half. It hasn't been like a roller coaster. He just wasn't playing his best ball. He knew it. A lot of that's our fault. We had to, we put him down at strong safety for a period of time instead of free, that's really where he feels most comfortable. And about midway through the season, we said, hey, we're going to just put Teo back where he feels more comfortable, and he started to flourish from there. And so that's as much on us as it is on him. But the second half of the season, he's really played like he's capable of. That play, as I mentioned, was instrumental. If that play doesn't happen, it's probably a different outcome. In fact, if we didn't score on it, that would have changed the complexion of it. If we would have just defended it, still put us at a pretty good deficit. And so, like I said, that was a 4-point switch, and kept our hopes alive, gave us a better chance.
There you go. That is Kyle Whittingham taking the podium after beating Kansas State 51-47. You heard him choking up, getting a little emotional there at the beginning of the presser, talking about this senior group and what they've done for him, what they've meant to him. And I get it because he has been through a lot, especially with that class. It seems like the seniors in this class are the really the last remaining ones from those really special teams at the end of the Pac-12 era. And it really makes sense that he would be really emotional about a lot of those guys because they've done a lot. They played a lot for Utah football. You're thinking guys like Logan Fano, Spencer Fano, Lander Barton, a lot of these guys, man, they've done some great things, and I get it. And also we learned some new words from Coach Whittingham. Intestinal fortitude. I like that.
Look, man, this team tonight had a lot of intestinal fortitude. Coming back again, the odds. He mentioned it, man. He had the percentage right there off the top of his head. He mentioned that.
Love that.
What was it? What did he say? 97%. ESPN already wasn't giving him the chance to come back and win this game, but they showed their intestinal fortitude. They came back and they were able to pull it off. And of course, this keeps them in the conversation, man. This keeps them in whatever that race may be, whatever it might shape out. We were talking about it earlier. We'll see how the committee values this win for Utah, how they value this comeback, and we'll see where they land in the rankings, and we'll see kind of how things shake up heading into the final week of the season, man.
My 2 cents. I don't think you should lose. I don't think you should drop in the rankings after a win.
Yeah.
Easy as that. I don't think you should drop from the rankings after a win. And we'll see, because we all know Utah teams, especially, the Big 12, does not get the same sort of grace that other teams and other big conferences may have. But even though the teams around the Utes won, I don't think that any team really should fall in any sort of power ranking after a win.
I agree, man.
It was a really brutal, ugly win.
Hey, he said it wasn't ugly. He said it wasn't ugly.
Listen, it was ugly. I'm sorry. It was one of the ugliest wins of it. It was fun. It was. Don't get me wrong. That's one of the most anxious I've ever been watching a football game.
Yeah,
it was a fun win. It was ugly.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Again, you had to grind it out. That pick 2, man, massive momentum shift, and again, without that, I don't know if it makes the mountain a little bit harder to climb. But you get the pick 2, you get some momentum, you get some confidence back under you, and of course, you're able to come back, pull off the comeback, man. It's amazing.
All right, any closing thoughts before we get to offensive, defensive MVP?
Closing thoughts? No, just go out again, take care of business against Kansas. It's an early kickoff on a Friday, and so we'll see how Utah's able to perform on the road. And again, we'll see how things shake up around them and see where the Utes go. Regardless, I think that Utah fans need to again remember where they were last year, and just know that no matter what happens here down the stretch, it has to be seen as a successful season for Utah.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, considering that how badly this was needed, right? This season was needed. Before we get to the MVPs, real quick, shout out to PNW Ute. Been chiming in for, I think, every single post-game show that we've done.
Yeah,
Coming in with a question last second. Do you think Utes could drop in the playoff rankings because of the injuries rather than the narrow win?
Ooh.
Interesting question. Obviously referencing what happened to Florida State a couple years ago when they were left out of the playoff, presumably because their quarterback had a season-ending injury, right? I don't think that would happen, because this isn't the injuries today were not to a quarterback. And actually turns out Fano did return to the game. Spencer Fano did.
Yeah.
Josh Furlong tweeting that Fano did return. So sounded like Ryan Davis left the game, didn't come back in. Obviously, John Henry Daly left the game, didn't come back in. Those are 2 big injuries, but I don't think that they are big enough to justify dropping Utah in the playoff rankings. But how do you feel, Alex?
I think even just knowing that Spencer Fano came back into the game, I think that's a massive boost. Right, that is he's probably going to be the number 1 tackle taken in this draft. Just having him alone, I think, should give some sort of boost to the committee. Losing John Henry Daly, it's huge, but I think losing Fano, I think, would be a much bigger one. I don't know if you agree there, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, they both would suck, right?
Yeah.
But I think I agree. Like, this offense is not the same without Spencer Fano, and the defense really struggles, obviously, without John Henry Daly. But I mean, again, this is a Utah team that's been putting up 50 points over the last 3 out of their last 4 conference games. So it's a big deal to have Fano on that offensive line. But let's wrap this up as we always do. Alex, let's get an offensive and defensive MVP from you.
Offensive MVP, sweet and easy, Bert Ficklin. 3 touchdowns, man. That's phenomenal from the true freshman quarterback. Defensive MVP. Ooh, I think that one's a little bit of a tougher one considering what we saw. But I mean, a part of me wants to give it to John Henry Daly just for the performance that he had in that first quarter.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately we'll give it to Taylor Johnson for being able to run back that pick too and really change and swing things in Utah's favor.
Yeah, because even let's say the rest of the game played out the way it did, even if he just picks that and gets tackled, Utah still could have won the game with another possession, right?
Yeah.
But it felt like that play was so big for momentum. It felt like they needed him to run that all the way back to make Utah truly feel like they can come back. Because they were still down.
And it feels like it got the crowd back into it too, man.
Yes.
Coach mentioned it too. You noticed people starting to leave the stadium when they were down. But it really brought the crowd back into it. And even though people had left, it sounded really loud on the broadcast. And so massive props to everybody who was out there at Rice Cycle Stadium, stuck around, cheered on that team, and made that a loud, rowdy environment.
Gary Eugene Burke chiming in on YouTube. What time is the Utah Utes game on Friday? It's 10 a.m. 10 a.m., Gary. Utah at Kansas. They're going to wrap up their final regular season game of the year. And Alex and I are actually going to have a pregame show before then. So tune in for that. And then we will have the postgame show immediately following the game, as always. So thank you to everybody for tuning in to this one. Super fun game to cover tonight. Super fun postgame show. Thanks to PK for sending the audio. Thanks for Sean for producing in the studio, getting the audio ready. And then thanks to you, Alex, as always. Thanks to everybody else for watching and listening. We'll catch you on Friday. It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.